On my own in the studio tonight. I'm just going to give you guys a couple of minutes to jump on board. Typing in a couple things here for y'all. For those of you watching the replay, thank you again. I really appreciate everything that you guys have done to put your comments into the replay section, to give me shout outs, to put your questions in there. And again, if you're watching the replay, please don't be shy. Put your question in there. I do go back and watch to see who is watching the replay and any questions that I can pick up for you guys there. I see a couple of you jumping on board. I'm texting a couple things here, getting ready for the show. All right. Hey there, Scott from West Virginia. All right there. Good to see you. All right, guys, as you come on board, let me know who you are, where you're from, what's in your drink. I'm a little scatterbrained today because I was running in from a rehearsal with my kids. But hopefully we have got everything here. I got my notes. We're ready to go. All right. Whew. Okay, so I see a few more of you jumping on board. Guys, I am broadcasting to my YouTube channel as well as to my Facebook channel. There we go. So for those of you who might have trouble finding me on Facebook, YouTube is sometimes a little bit easier. Uh, all right. Scott says hello from West Virginia. We got Jerry from Arizona. We've got Drew saying he forgot his sandwich. I know, Drew. I was just like snarfing my dinner down really quick before I came on board. We got Emily from Central PA, Southern Tier, thick mint stout. That sounds really good. Scott's got water tonight. We got Michael Davies on board. Oh, it's good to see you, Mike. Man, I would love to hear an update on how you're doing. We've got Robert Schulman from the Limkind Foundation. I am so giving you a shout out tonight, Robert. Robert, when are we going to Cuba? I'm putting you on the spot live, Robert. When are we going to Cuba? Steven, guys, if you guys haven't heard of the Limkind Foundation, Robert, throw up the link for the Limkind Foundation. Get yourself a free plug for your organization. This man is a borderline saint. He is an amazing prosthetist, and he takes teams around the world to provide prosthetic devices for children in impoverished countries. So that this man is just a wonderful human being. And one of these days, we are going to be able to do a trip together, Robert. All right. So, Robert, please put the link up there for Limkind Foundation so everybody can see the work that you do. We got Steven on board from Jacksonville and the Cosi Party. We got Chris from Arizona. We got Jim Simpson from St. Louis with a nice vodka tonic. Wow, you guys got some nice stuff. I got my iced tea. I'm a Southern girl, so I've got my iced tea ready to go. We've got Chuck on board watching me from the YouTube channel. Oh, Robert, thank you so much for that. We got Michelle on board. We got Comadre. This is a full house tonight, guys. I appreciate that. Kim, you are on live. Kim Richards, you are on live. You're not watching the replay. I caught your comment from the last show, darling. So you're on live. So, guys, there's the Limkind. Guys, there's the Limkind link. If you're ever wondering about, hey, what's a great charity I can donate to for amputees to give back to the community? Boom, right there. That's one of my two favorites right there. All right. So we got Marianne Thompson on board. Now it's a party. Okay. So, Kim, here's what I want you to do. So Kim says she always has a hard time finding me live. Guys, that number I just posted there, that is my little solution. Okay. I have a texting service. Aren't I fancy now? Right. So all you have to do is text Cosi Talks, all caps, one word, just like I wrote it there, to that number, and you'll start receiving my text messages when I go live. So Kim, at 8:15 on Wednesday nights, I send out a text message, and Drew saw me with a picture of me eating my dinner. Sorry about that. But I also put in there the links so that all you have to do is just click on that link to make it easy to find me live. So guys, if you haven't already done so, go ahead and sign up for my texting service. I promise I'm not spamming you or selling your numbers or any of that kind of baloney. All right. Michelle says the best. Robert Schulman's the best. Bring me with you, Cosi. Oh, that'd be awesome. No, guys, I have to say last summer I went with the Range of Motion Project to Zacapa, which is in one of the provinces of Guatemala. And I got to work in a clinic there for almost 10 days. It was amazing. And what made it just even more special was I got to bring my two teenage daughters with me to join me. And they got thrown into the mix where, my daughters and I are bilingual and we speak Spanish fluently. So my daughters were translating for all of the prosthetist interns that were there, as well as conducting patient interviews. I mean, they were really working hard. And I have to say, it was just some of the most amazing work that I've had a chance to do as a clinician. And I can't wait to get out there and try something like that again. Let's see. We got Sean on board with Mountain Dew Zero. There you go, Kim. Good. We got Johnny V. Johnny V, I got your text messages, man. I promise I'm going to get back to you. We got Sandy in Gainesville, Florida. All right, guys, it's a party. Let's get started. So for those of you joining me for the first time, welcome. My name is Cosi. I'm a physical therapist, amputee specialist here in hot, sweaty, sticky, buggy, alligatory Tampa, Florida. And I've been a PT now for a little over 20 years. 20 years, that's a really long time. Hey, we got Andrea on board. Andrea is my resident occupational therapist who joins me here every week, and I love it. Thank you very much. We've got Liz, and we got Bonnie from Tennessee. She's got her coffee on board. So guys, a couple of weeks ago, I had the pleasure of speaking at one of the Hanger support group Zoom support group meetings. And what was really cool is because it was Limb Loss Awareness Month, they opened up the group to anybody. You didn't have to be a Hanger patient to join. And some of you came and joined the meeting. And I love doing Zoom meetings because I get to see everybody's faces and I get to actually interact with you, which is wonderful. I love doing that. I wish I could do that for this show every Wednesday, but for many reasons, I'm not able to. And they sent in a lot of their questions. And guys, they had a lot of really great questions. So I'm going to be picking from their questions from a couple of weeks ago. Those of you who are new to the show, and even my veterans who've been here a long time, if you have any questions, put it in the comment section. That's what this show is for, is to answer your questions. All right. So that was actually the first question that they asked me is, what countries have you traveled to work in? So yes, I got a chance to travel to Guatemala at the very beginning of my career before I had just graduated PT school and before I even got licensed. I did another medical mission trip to the Dominican Republic. And that was an amazing, amazing opportunity. And that particular one, it was not an amputee specific clinic. It was a general medical clinic. And I traveled there with a general surgeon. And I remember it was a very small group of us, only about maybe 7 or 8 of us. And I was the only one who spoke Spanish. So the general surgeon looked at me and he said, I'm going to be in the OR all day fixing hernias for these folks. And congratulations, you're now the orthopedic doctor here. And I'm like, brand fresh new grad, but it was just a wonderful experience. I got to work with the children there, do a lot of pediatric screenings, and do a lot of work with the adults there as well. Let's see. Emily says, I get my prosthesis from Hanger Clinic in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania, a week from today. Emily, I know you've had a long road of it, so I'm so excited to see how you do with your prosthesis. Okay. Here's a good question that they presented me with, and I don't often get a lot of questions for upper extremity amputees, which, by the way, more than happy to answer those questions as well. This person was asking, how do you recommend, if possible, rebuilding atrophied muscles in an above elbow amputee? Okay. Now the answer for this is going to apply to those of you who are below the knee amputees and also above the knee amputees, right? So a lot of people are always asking, I notice that there's a lot of muscle atrophy in my residual limb. Like, is that something I just have to suck it up and accept it? And that's just the way it's going to be? Is there any hope of building that muscle back up again? And the answer to that is yes and no. Okay. So here's the thing. When they cut a muscle, right, unless there's nerve damage to the muscle, if there's nerve damage, that's a different story. But when they cut a muscle and they reattach it, it still works, right? It still is getting the nerve impulses to the motor unit, and it still has the ability to contract. Now, is it going to contract the way it did before amputation? No. No. Will it ever have the strength that it had before amputation potentially? No. Why? For 2 reasons. Number 1, the length, right? It does not have the same length of muscle. So think of it as a lever arm, right? Just basics of physics there, guys. The longer your lever arm, the bigger, more force that you can contract with it. Not going to be able to do that with a shorter muscle, okay? And the other part of it is the manner in which it's attached, right? So the angle, our bodies are basically a study in physics. Those of you who liked physics in high school and college, I'm that nerd, right? Not so much on the chemistry. The chemistry, I leave it for the doctors. I loved the physics of it. That's the human body. Human body is basically a bunch of lever arms and moment arms and force and, gravity acting upon the body, right? So when you change the position of the lever arm and the angle, meaning when you're taking that muscle and you're reattaching it in some place different, it's not going to contract as efficiently as it did prior to the amputation. Okay. Now, when I'm working with someone who is a below the knee amputee, who's an above the knee amputee, am I completely ignoring the muscles in that residual limb? No, I just incorporate them in the exercises, in full body exercises. Okay. So for example, in my below the knee and above the knee patients, I will have them do squats. Number one, love squats. Love the fact that it's a closed chain, meaning your feet are connected to the floor like a real life situation, right? And you're pretty much targeting every muscle in the lower limbs of your body. And if you're doing it right, you're even targeting your core. Okay. So inadvertently, you're going to start contracting some of those residual muscles, right? So you can work those muscles just a little bit. Okay. In an above elbow amputee, okay, especially if they're super, super short, right? One of the focuses should be on core trunk strengthening, right? And it travels down to the glutes as well. Okay. So a lot of people are just thinking, okay, an upper extremity or an arm amputee, they don't have to worry so much about leg strengthening. Not true, because your legs and your hips and your glutes are all part of your foundation. And if you have to have a strong foundation so that the upper body has the freedom to move and do the activities of daily living without getting chronic injury. Okay, so someone who's an above the elbow amputee, yeah, I'm not going to focus on trying to get their residual biceps or residual triceps to really strengthen up so much. But as I'm doing core strengthening, right, as I'm working on their other arm, as I'm working on the shoulder girdle, those muscles will be activated. So they're kind of coming along for the ride. So they're going to get their little strengthening moment as well. Yeah, did that make sense? Can y'all give me a thumbs up if you're like, yeah, that made sense, or thumbs down like, nope, sorry, Cosi. Let's see. Got some comments that came in. Gustavo, ¿cómo está de la Argentina? Bueno, hablando de cómo fortalecer los músculos residuos en el muñón. A ver si lo dije todo bien en español. So guys, that's another thing I kind of want to interject. I've had actually, I don't know what's in the water this week, but I've had 3 emails from people saying that they have Spanish speaking only amputees that have joined their support group. And the support group leaders are just looking for someone who can connect with them in Spanish. So guys, I do just want to put it out there. Spanish is my first language. I am able to read, I'm able to write and speak Spanish. So if somebody you know in your support group is Spanish speaking only, please feel free to give them my email address. And I'm more than happy to try to answer questions for them in Spanish as well. And also on the show. So those of you who've been with me for a while, you've heard me occasionally answer a question in Spanish. The gentleman who just came on board, he's actually a physical therapist in Argentina. So I've had some clinicians from Argentina, from Brazil join on board and communicating with them in Spanish and very, very, very little Portuguese. But guys, my point is, I know we have a lot of Spanish speaking folks in this community, and I want them to be able to have these resources as well. So if you know of anybody, please give them the information. Bonnie says, the physiatrist is an amputee specialist and has a clinical specialist prosthetic person coming to determine if I can wear legs since the CRPS has come back. Okay, Bonnie. Yeah, CRPS, complex regional pain syndrome. That's a tricky one. That is a tricky one. We do have quite a few viewers on the show actually that have had history of CRPS. Some of them had success after their amputation, and the CRPS stayed in remission. Some did not. So Bonnie, I'd love to know if you don't mind keeping me up on what your specialist has to say about all of this and how they are hoping to do your plan of care with that. Let's see. Emily asks, what role does the foot and ankle play in kneeling? My PT is having me practice kneeling as a way to slowly get used to a standing position, and it's a workout. Oh my gosh, yes, it is. So it's interesting. If I had to bet money, I would say that your physical therapist has a lot of neuro experience or pediatric experience, because this is something that we use a lot on our neurologically impaired patients, meaning patients who have had a stroke, patients who have had traumatic brain injury, patients who have had congenital issues such as spina bifida or cerebral palsy. Also, when I worked way back when in the beginning of my career, I actually worked pediatrics and I loved it. A lot of developmental. So we did a lot of tall kneeling, quadruped positioning, right? So basically what you're doing when you're kneeling or you're on a quadruped, meaning you're on your hands and your knees, you're activating more in the quadruped, you're activating a lot of core, right? You're really focusing on the core. You're focusing on putting weight into the joints, right? Getting the joints used to weight bearing. When you're in tall, we call it tall kneeling. So when you're kneeling on your knees, right, as if you were, I'm Catholic, so that's my reference. If you're praying on kneelers, right, you're working the glutes. And oh my gosh, is that a workout? I can say as a Catholic, we all got buns of steel from kneeling in mass every Sunday. And you're also working the core. Okay, so that's a lot of really good stuff going on, Emily. And if your therapist is really working on it, they're working on your full core, meaning the abdominals, the extensors, the pelvic floor, especially for us women, and the diaphragm, right? Really trying to incorporate everything there. And yeah, glutes, total workout. And as a result, your hamstrings are also getting a workout as well. Okay. And a lot of times also with spasticity, and guys, it's been a minute since I've done pediatrics and true neuro PT. But I know that we would use some of these developmental positions like tall kneeling and quadruped to help with managing spasticity, right? Because you're putting weight bearing into the joints. So the joints are getting that sensory input. And you're also having the body move in different planes to hopefully relax the tone just a little bit. So, Emily, if the spina bifida does cause you to have some form of spasticity, that can also kind of um, help the muscles get strong enough to hopefully either break through the spasticity or work through it. Like I said, guys, it's been a minute since I've done neuro, so that's my little Mickey Mouse explanation for it. Let's see, we got Alex on board from North Carolina. Alex, it's been a while, man. Glad you're here. So Kim says I also suffer from CRPS as well. So Kim, if you don't mind posting, what has been your experience with using a prosthetic device after CRPS? Jody says, "Hey from Las Vegas." We got Van Gregory there. There's my boy from Texas right there. Bonnie says, "Well, dude, got my fingers crossed since I don't have any toes." I love it. Okay, so they do have a lot of stroke patients. Emily says, "Yep." Hey there, Pat. Emily says, "I'm a pastor's kid, so the bench she has me rest my elbows on reminds me of a kneeler in church." Yeah, yeah, it's true. All right, guys. So let's see. We've got. Hang on. I need good stuff. Okay, so here's another question that came in. It said, "Should we continue to do the PT exercises we learned in rehab?" Y'all are going. We know what she's going to do with this. There goes a Cosi soapbox right now. Yes. Definitely. There is an asterisk to that. So, guys, I used to work home health. I worked home health for 8 years. As I was, growing my family, it was just a wonderful way for me to be able to continue working on as a physical therapist with my skills while, growing my family as a mom, being a stay-at-home mom. And I always chuckled because inadvertently, if I had a patient who had been discharged from rehab, I could almost like cover my eyes, walk in their house, and I could guess where their home exercise program exercises were going to be stuffed under a coaster, stuffed under a book, using to mop up some sort of mess on the floor. Basically, nobody ever decided to continue doing their exercises at home. And I get it, guys. I get it, especially if your PT hands you a stack of exercises this big. That's not really, realistic. But the answer is yes. When it comes to exercise, whether you're an amputee or not, exercise is a lifelong pursuit. Okay. As humans, we are now living into our eighth, ninth, sometimes even 10th decades, right? And if depending on what belief system you ascribe to, our bodies really weren't meant to live past the age of 30. Especially if you think about just even a couple of centuries ago, the lifespan, right? So after 30, things tend to break down, and exercise is a way to keep things going. Okay. It is a use it or lose it scenario. And especially if you had trauma to the orthopedic system, to your muscles, to your bones, to your tendons, right? You especially have to work harder to maintain your strength, your mobility, and your balance. Okay. And even those of you, which I know, is a smaller percent of the population who are athletic, right? Who are elite athletes, they continue to work on things, right? Because if they don't, they'll lose, any progress. And then in continuing to work, they just continue to set goals for themselves and reach those goals, right? So, yes. And then Sean says, I work out 4 times a week. I love hearing that. Now, what I will say is your program should be evolving. Okay. If you're still using the same program that you were on 4 years ago in inpatient rehab, it's time for an upgrade, right? It's time for an upgrade. And this is again where I encourage you guys continue talking to your physical therapist. My patients know that even if once they're completely independent with their goals and they're living their lives out in the community, which is what I want them to do, right? they are always welcome to call me or come in for a visit and have me design an exercise or fitness program for them. And many of them choose to do that because they know that I know about the componentry, I know about the potentials for injury, and I can design a program for them that's going to challenge them and keep them strong without getting injured. And then they can take that program and continuing it on their own, or some of them will take it to their personal trainers and say, hey, this is the framework my physical therapist set up for me. Let's work from this, please. Right. And a lot of your smaller mom and pop clinics, like the one I have, they do a lot of these. I call them the after school programs, right? That after they discharge their patients from traditional therapy, right, they will continue to offer these kind of services to their patients. Okay. And guys, those of you who are just like, well, I don't have an amputee specialist in my area, if you've reached that level where you are independent with your prosthesis and you just need a fitness program, any Bobo PT is going to be able to do that for you. Okay. Even if they don't know a whole lot about your componentry, they can do this. And guys, I'm going to take this time to kind of plug a little bit if y'all don't mind. You know, I got to plug this at least once. Okay. So I developed a program. It's got over 150 video exercises, and I've got two books, one for above the knee and one for below the knee amputee. Okay. Here are exercises for everything from the brand new, fresh out of the OR amputee, right? To somebody, so these are like some of the exercises for the brand new amputee that can be done with or without the prosthesis. And I have exercises here that are challenging enough for some of my runners, right? A lot of my runners, and I've got everything for arms, legs, core, balance, strengthening. So if you need a place to start as far as your fitness program, you can get started over there, and there's the website for it. All right, let's see. And guys, I still have the promo going on. The promotion I did for April Limb Loss Awareness Month, it's still up there. I haven't gotten around to taking it down yet. So if you want to get this program, get it now before I take the promotion down. Just saying. All right, let's see. We got Susan coming in from Canada. Let's see. Emily asks, do you find that if a patient needs orthopedic shoes, that insurance doesn't normally pay for them unless the patient is diabetic? I'm not diabetic, but because of the spina bifida and using KFOs, many regular shoes don't fit. And my prosthetist said orthopedic shoes will cost, oh my word, $800 to $900. That costs more than Christian Louboutins. Are you kidding me? And they're not as cute as the Louboutins either, which is a lot for someone. It's a lot for anybody, Emily. Holy smokes, I can't afford to pay $800 shoes. That's insane. Yes, unfortunately, I do see a lot of problems with folks who are not diabetic that they need the orthopedic shoes and the insurance companies will not pay for them. And I don't have an answer for you right now. Andrea, if you're on board and you're listening right now, Andrea is my OT. Do you have any solutions for this? Do you have any kind of $800? Are you kidding me? I mean, like granted this was 20 years ago, but when I was working starting off as a PT, these shoes cost $100. And guys, the shoes haven't changed a whole lot. So, oh my gosh, that's insane. Kim says, no, I've had many made by different people and they have said they don't think they can. Oh, Kim, I'm sorry to hear that. Let's see. Bonnie asks, is there anywhere to find a good exercise program for bilateral above knee amputees not in legs? Oh, for folks who are not using prosthetic devices. Bonnie, at the moment, no. And I've done my research. I know that eventually I want to expand my program for bilaterals as well. I'm waiting for some funding to come in for that. In the meantime, Bonnie, I have had some bilateral above the knee folks buy my program, and there are exercises in my program that are meant to be done without the prosthesis, and they can be modified. Like if you look at the person who's my model who's the above the knee amputee, but I have two of them on the program, a male and a female. And if you watch, they do the exercises without the prosthesis on as well. Okay, and there's a lot of core in there. There's a lot of upper extremity exercises as well, and flexibility exercises. So a lot of things that you can do even if you're not wearing the prosthesis. So there's a lot of exercises in there for that. So again, I would encourage you just to kind of look at that and see if you feel like that would apply for you. Miss Debbie says, I just returned from vascular surgery. Miss Debbie, I hope you're feeling better. Susan says, I have orthopedic shoes and they only cost $180. And Susan says, and I live in Canada, which we know in Canada things can be a little bit more expensive. So, yes, Susan, if you can put a link for that for Emily, yeah, because I'm like, holy smokes, $800 and $900. That seems exorbitant, even with our inflation and everything going on in our economy right now. So, Susan, if you can provide a link for that, that would be awesome. I know $180 is still like pricey, but it's a lot better than 800. Jerry says, I'm on phase one with your book and videos, and they're great. I have learned a lot of exercises that I wasn't doing before. Yes, I love to hear that. Thank you, Jerry. Sean says, Air Max 2017 are incredible, but $190. Yeah. Emily says, I noticed that a bunch of the exercises in your strong body program are ones I'm already doing in PT, so I know I'm on the right track. Good. And that's what it should be, guys. The exercises here, they're a combination of exercises that I use in my own personal fitness program because I'm a runner and a swimmer, and the exercises I've been giving my patients for the past 20 years. Okay. And again, Emily, what I would encourage you to do is, show the book to your PT and have him or her, guide you along on the progression of these exercises. So hopefully you're going to be able to do physical therapy for a nice long time, but when the time comes for you to be discharged, they can create a fitness program for you from that book as well. All right, let's see. Miss Debbie says, my residual limb is possibly getting an amputation anywhere, and I don't know from toes to the knee. All right, Miss Debbie, hopefully you're in the, I hope you realize you're in the right place. We have a lot of folks here who have been there, done that. And we've had a lot of folks here on the show as well that they are like yourself, waiting to have that first amputation, and they have a lot of questions about it. So Miss Debbie, I would encourage you, if you have any questions, don't be shy, put them in the comment section. I'm happy to answer those questions. You can also email me directly, and I'm going to put my email if you would prefer to email me directly your questions. There's my email address right there. And anything that we can do to answer your questions for your possible upcoming surgery. Let's see. Drew says they're about $200 for orthopedic shoes. Buy them yourself. Okay, so it sounds like, and that's good to know that it, well, not really great, but it sounds like when from an insurance standpoint, they'll do the whole markup thing. But if you buy the shoes on your own, hopefully you can definitely find them in a cheaper place. If anybody is able to post a link for Emily, that'd be awesome. Marianne says, yes, Cosi above the knee book has helped me with or without my prosthesis. And Marianne is one of our bilateral above the knee amputees that I was mentioning. So let's see. Susan says, I bought mine at Shoe Per. I am not familiar if that's a website or a stand-up or a store. Andrea says, question about shoes. New Balance has extended width and sizes that might accommodate bracing. So yeah, Andrea, the question was that one of our viewers, she needs the orthopedic shoe because she wears KFOs as well as the prosthetic foot. And the insurance was going to try to, basically her insurance won't pay for it because she's not diabetic. And the cost that they were quoting her was $800 to $900. So I was just wondering if in your experience, you had any tricks in your bag as far as either justifying it with insurance when the person is not diabetic or any other outside resources. So Andrea says New Balance, and they do have extended width and sizes that might accommodate the bracing. So maybe if you go up half a shoe size, Emily, in the New Balance wider width, maybe that could accommodate it there. Susan says Foot Dynamics was another place I bought some orthopedic New Balance sneakers. There we go. And they have orthopedic shoes. Wonderful. There's an eBay site that is a New Balance outlet. Worth a look. Good. Thank you guys for all of that input. That really helps because, man, that price tag, little scary. All right, let's see. Next question here was, sorry, I'm like, there were a ton of questions that they submitted. Aha, here's a good one. As leg amputees, as we age, does our gait mechanics change organically, or is that something we need to be on the lookout for both in our own gait work and in consulting our prosthetist for adjustments? That's a really phenomenal question. And the answer is yes. As we age, our gait dynamics will organically change. Obviously, when you're a baby and learning how to walk, your gait undergoes a lot of changes and a lot of evolution there. And it's about the age of 8 when the child reaches what's considered to be a mature adult gait pattern. And it's really fascinating. I have 4 children, and my youngest one is 9 years old. And it's just like he's finally, obviously about a year ago is when I finally started seeing him as well with his walking, that he looked like a little miniature human adult versus a little kid walking. So it's interesting just seeing just that as a mother and as a clinician, just seeing how they change in their gait patterns. And yes, as we get older, we do have changes in our gait pattern. Our base of support gets a little bit wider, right? We don't swing our legs out quite as much. So our step length gets a little bit shorter. Our cadence might increase to accommodate for the fact that we are taking shorter steps, or it might decrease because we don't have the cardiovascular endurance anymore. Our posture, right? We start to have the more rounded shoulders posture, right? We don't have as much arm swing as we're walking. So all these little things will creep up as we get older and as we age. Okay. You throw a prosthetic device into there, and some of these things might amplify and might begin to cause problems, right? So, when it comes to watching your gait mechanics, yes, I think that's something you always need to be on the lookout. And one person was saying that he himself didn't realize that he would be walking differently. He knows that he has to go back to his prosthetist when his wife points out that he's walking funny, as she calls it, right? That she'll say, ever since you got that new foot, you've been walking kind of funny. Or, you know what, babe, you're starting to kind of lean a little bit more on your sound leg. Is something bothering you, right? So even in some of the cases of some amputees, they don't even realize that they're either compensating in a gait pattern or their gait pattern is changing until one of their loved ones points it out. Okay. So definitely in the case when you have a new prosthetic device, that's something I'm like, absolutely, you need to get it checked out. Whether you're getting a new socket, new knee, new foot, new suspension system, new whatever. Okay. That's where I tell my patients, shoot a quick video of yourself and send it to me and let me see you walking. Right. In some cases, no problems, right? The socket that was made beautifully. They have no issues with their walking. They're not doing anything wonky with their gait pattern. Off they go. But a lot of times I'll start to see that, okay, because the foot is a different kind of foot. Maybe they went from a multi axial to a dynamic response foot. Maybe they went from a mechanical knee to using a microprocessor knee. Okay. Maybe they went from a pin lock suspension to suction suspension, right? And it just changes the mechanics. It changes the flavor of the gait a little bit, right? And our bodies are going to try to compensate, right, to keep ourselves moving. Okay. So, yes, having a physical therapist, having a prosthetist looking at the gait pattern to make sure that nothing is being compensated is important. And it's something that should be continuously monitored throughout the life of the amputee. Okay. Some folks that might only mean going in once or twice a year to go see your PT and getting eyes laid on. And some people might need a little bit more than that. Andrea says with the insurance, peripheral neuropathy might qualify. Document lack of sensation if appropriate. Okay, Emily, that's a really great point. So with spina bifida, chances are you've got impaired sensation. So that could be one thing that your physical therapist can justify or your occupational therapist can justify in that letter of medical necessity that would require the insurance to then pay for those shoes. Thank you, Andrea. Sean says, I talked with my prosthetist and she doesn't like the idea about adjustable sockets. Should I go elsewhere? I've been with hangers since 2003. Okay, so here would be my question, Sean. What was the reasoning your prosthetist said no to an adjustable socket? Okay. Again, I don't want to play Monday morning quarterback because I only see this part of the picture, right? And guys, this is something that I've encountered with many prosthetists. A lot of times, prosthetists can be a little bit wary of an adjustable socket technology, some of the new adjustable socket technology, because they're just not familiar with it. And there's, on my show, I talk a lot about Click Medical. I love me some Click Medical, right? They are, sorry. Okay. Oh. I've got my kids' music studio over here as well, where they practice their violin and piano. So often my sockets get mixed in. So, guys, this is the Click Medical adjustable socket. This particular socket has a bunch of the different versions of it on it. But yeah, usually you just use one version of the adjustability. Right. And with this one, you have the dial, right, that you can loosen up a panel, click it in, twist it, and it tightens up. You can do the same thing with like a gap design, and then they also have a hinge design. And now they have a click reel, which is kind of nice because you can twist forward and backward to tighten and loosen the socket. Really little minor adjustments, which is really, really great. Okay, it is not the only adjustable socket technology out there. Okay. So this is where I think sometimes folks get a little bit, they don't like the idea of an adjustable socket. So my advice to you would be ask them why they don't like it. Why they, is it because they simply haven't had the experience or the training? Okay. And Click Medical does offer some really great training on their website on how to make the adjustable socket. Sometimes the prosthetist might be under the impression that they don't get to make the socket. I've had some prosthetists think that, and that's not the case. In the case with the Revo Fit, your prosthetist makes the socket and they order, it's stuck in here, they order the kit. And in this kit are the tools that you need to build the adjustability into the socket. Okay, so your prosthetist is still making the socket, which is a good thing. We want that. We like that, right? Especially if your prosthetist is good at making sockets, right? We want them to make the socket for you because they know you better than right? And they build the adjustability into the socket with the tools that Click Medical provides in their Revo Fit kit. Okay, other adjustable socket technologies work a little bit differently. Okay, so again, just open up that line of communication. And then the other thing to just bring up to your prosthetist is, well, technically, if you're having to put on socks and take off socks throughout your day, you're having to adjust your socket. Okay. You're kind of using an adjustable socket there, right? Now, if you're someone, Sean, who doesn't fluctuate in limb volume, like you're one of those lucky ducks and unicorns, whatever you want to call it, that your limb stays stable throughout the entire day and does not change in volume, then yeah, you won't need an adjustable socket because you're not having to adjust for anything. But again, that's a really teeny tiny part of the population in amputee world. Okay. Most of the people I know, they have to adjust their socket throughout the day. Okay. Let's see. Bonnie says, I had a bilateral above the knee amputee who told that she was started out in a hard cover for the end of the residual limb to be able to walk out the end without legs. I was wondering if something like that is still used. She had these as a child. The only thing I can think of that maybe she was referring to, Bonnie, is maybe the IPOP. It's an immediate post-op prosthesis. It was just very rudimentary socket made out of plaster. And we would put patients into this literally the day after surgery, and they just to give them the opportunity to start weight bearing a little bit into the limb. And it was done in a way that would protect the incision site. And depending on who you talk to, this was done. This was done a lot in the 80s. And we do have one. I think there's one surgeon in St. Pete that still likes to use the iPop devices. My understanding is that they didn't do that as much anymore because insurance. Um, I see a benefit to it. I think that if the surgeon clears the person and we can get them into a weight bearing device so soon after surgery, I think that's a great idea because I think it helps start getting that proprioceptive input. I think it helps starting to manage inflammation. It gets better mobility going, puts less stress on just hopping around on the sound limb. So, yeah, that might be what they were referring to, Bonnie. Okay, good. So, Emily, I hope you're getting all this information that people are posting about different places for shoes because they're putting in a lot of. Thank you. Andrea's putting in, Drew put in some information. Okay, so your everyday leg is lock and pin, but your blade is suction. That's talking more about your suspension system, Sean. What I would like to know, so your prosthetist said something about pressure on the limb. So if your prosthetist is concerned that an adjustable socket is going to increase the pressure on your limb, that just, again, I'm trying to figure out what they're thinking, and my guess is they maybe just don't understand how the adjustable socket works, because putting too much pressure on your limb with the use of an adjustable socket, that can happen just as easily by applying too many socks. Does that make sense? Now, sometimes I will say this, when it comes to elevated vacuum suction, which is something completely different. Okay. That's something completely different. Sometimes prosthetists are a little bit about putting those on folks because it can cause skin issues if a person is too aggressive, right? Totally understandable. But when it comes to adjustable socket, and again, I'm speaking from Click Medical standpoint, these kind of adjustable sockets. Yes, is there the potential for you to tighten that BOA dial too much? Well, sure, but then you just release it. That's it. And you have the same risk as putting on too many socks and putting your limb into the socket. So I hope that helps. Again, it's kind of tough trying to think of the thought process of the other person. Liz says, I love my Rebo fit. Yeah. Um, Emily says, I wish I could show you a picture of the Barbie doll I got from a friend that has a prosthetic leg. Oh, it was so cool and such a sweet gift on the last day of Limb Loss Awareness Month. That is nice. The Barbie is an AK and I'm a BK, but it's still just a thoughtful gift. That really is pretty sweet. That is pretty sweet. I grew up with Barbie, so I got to have a soft spot there for them. Susan says, I would love an adjustable socket, but it would be too pricey. And again, Susan, I know you're in Canada, so if I have no idea how that works in terms of, I believe it's nationalized healthcare, if I'm not mistaken, in Canada. So yeah, I'm not sure, what you would be eligible for there. So Sean says, what do you think is the best adjustable socket for someone as active as me? This one. So Sean, actually, you know what, Sean? If you go back April, go to my YouTube channel. Hang on. Okay. Go to my YouTube channel, and under the live videos, you're going to see that I recently did a show about a month ago with Click Medical and a young man by the name of Kyle Stepp. Super cool human being. And he is a young man. He is an above the knee amputee, and his story is amazing. And he is an elite athlete. He's a competitive, I believe it's triathlon. Yeah. High level competition. He uses the Click Medical. He uses Click Medical. Um, so go watch that show so that you can hear him talk about how he uses the Click Medical devices to go do the exercise. And oh my gosh, how did I possibly forget? So Sean, Cosi, next Wednesday, I'm having Click Medical on the show, and coming on the show are two of their ambassadors. Their names happen to be Sydney and Sydney. Not making this up. We have Sydney the girl and Sydney the boy, or man and woman, coming on the show. So anyways, they are both athletes. They're both athletes. And they're going to tell their stories on the show. They have incredible stories. They use the adjustable socket for their athletics. So of all the adjustable socket technology solutions that I've seen out there so far, this one is my favorite one. I don't mind saying that. It's my favorite one. And I've seen it on folks who are extremely active and athletes, and folks who are moderately active, and folks who don't have a lot of activity, but they use that. So yeah, Sean, set your alarm. So go watch. There's your homework assignment, Sean. Go watch the YouTube from about a month ago with Kyle Stepp, and then you need to come to next Wednesday's show. All of y'all need to come to next Wednesday's show, but Sean especially, I'm gonna be watching for you. You got to come to next Wednesday's show, and you can ask the Sydneys. I gotta think of some slogan there. You can ask the Sydneys yourself, like, how is it that it works for them during their activity level? Mhm. Emily says, I notice my shrinker gets loose after working hard at PT or on days where I'm constantly in and out of my van. That might be lymph fluid reducing too. Yep, which is good. I wish you could see a picture of how big my left leg was before amputation compared to now. If there's a silver lining to my amputation is that my swelling is so much less now. Still needs to get it less, but I'm on the right track. Yes. And Emily, again, I think I may have mentioned this before. I'm pretty sure you've probably been under the care of a lymphedema specialist at some point or another in your life. But again, that is someone that, along with your physical therapist who is doing your gait training, you want to keep them in your Rolodex because, again, those lymphedema specialists, man, they work magic. I am convinced they work magic on some of these lymphedema patients and in helping with those exacerbations. Um, Sean says, I love tennis, my favorite sport, but I haven't been able to play. And I love to play tennis too, Sean. Sean, I'm sorry. Can you remind me, are you an AK or a BK, Sean? Can you just put that in the comment section? Good. So Emily's getting lymphedema with an OT. Good. And then I should say, lymphedema specialists can be PTs or OTs. So I want to give out shout out to my OTs there too. Okay. Let me see. Hang on. I'm just flipping through the questions that they sent to me from the hanger support group. Oh, this one was kind of funny. This person sent in a question saying, how much do you love croissants and how did that come about? So that one just kind of made me chuckle. Some of you follow me on Instagram and I typically post things about, obviously related to the Cosi talk show and recovery from amputation, but every once in a while I'll put in a personal post in case you're really bored and just want to know what I had for dinner. So there was one time where I made these homemade croissants and no joke, they were this big. So you can scroll back on my Instagram account and you can find the pictures of me with the plate full of croissants. And yes, I did make those croissants. It took 3 days to make them. I love to cook. I love to bake. I had seen it on a TV show that I was watching and I just felt inspired to learn how to make authentic French croissants. So that's the story there. So Sean says, I am a left below the knee amputee. So Sean, when it comes to playing tennis, one of my very first activities, and I call it Amputee World, where shortly after I opened up my practice here in Tampa, I was invited to come and help teach a clinic with OPAF. So for those of you who haven't heard of OPAF, they have a series of adaptive sport clinics. They do a lot, but that's one of their big things that they do. So they'll teach people with physical disability on how to get started in tennis, in rock climbing, in dancing, in swimming. They do a lot of stuff. So I had the opportunity to be one of the instructors for the tennis clinic that we had. And I'll tell you what, Sean, the AKs, I cut them a little bit of slack, right? BKs, I didn't cut them any slack, right? They had to do the drills just like I was doing the drills and hitting that tennis ball. Sean, I know you said that you work out. I can tell you right now in the book that I published, a lot of the balance exercises that I put in that book are modified tennis drill exercises for balance. And again, these are the same balance exercises you can use for running drills, that you can use for basketball drills. So these exercises will apply to a lot of the sports that you do. So I would highly, highly encourage you, once you figure out those last issues with your adjustable socket or not adjustable socket or whatever it is you and your prosthetist decide to go on, get back into tennis. Oh, you just got involved with Brooks Adaptive Sports. Good, good. And I know pickleball is a huge thing, and I always joke around with my pickleball friends saying that they're taking over my tennis courts. But I have to admit, pickleball is an absolutely wonderful. It's a wonderful segue into tennis. Especially if you're an above the knee amputee, you don't have to move around the court anywhere near as much as you do with tennis. And it's still that great satisfaction of hand-eye coordination that you get there with tennis. So that's another great option there as well. So pickleball, that's another thing you guys might want to think about. Andrea says, tennis clinic in Jacksonville, Florida, this Saturday, standing or with wheelchair level if you are in Florida. Thank you, Andrea. That's right. That is where we met. So I did meet Andrea there at the tennis clinic. I also met Reggie Showers there for the first time. Isn't that funny, Andrea? That's where I met Reggie Showers. I had no idea who he was at the time. All I know is he was standing at the side of the court, just kind of standing there, looking cool. And I just went up to him and handed him a racket. I was like, dude, you going to play or what? He was just like, I'm working. I can't play. And I was just like, I didn't realize he worked for College Park. So I was giving him a hard time from day one. Let's see. So Emily says, I know you don't deal with insurance much. Yeah, that's an understatement. But do you know if insurance is more willing to cover PT versus OT? They've approved twice as many sessions for PT as they have for OT. Yes. In general, I find that unless it's like a hand injury, PT does get a little bit more approved than OT. Now, it's not to say that PT gets enough approval, right? So that should in perspective puts you how little approval sometimes OTs can get, which we need. But yes, in general, PTs will get more visits. And again, depending on the setting that you're in, you might need more from the PT side of it than the OT. So, for example, when you get to outpatient, hopefully by the time you get to the outpatient clinic, a lot of the activities of daily living, you are already doing them on your own. And that's again where the strength of the occupational therapist comes into play. Okay. Now, in your case, Emily, your OT is your lymphedema specialist. So that's something that's just a little bit different, right? But in terms of activities of daily living, fine motor skills, a lot of these issues will hopefully be cleared with an inpatient rehab. And whatever is left, then yes, the outpatient. But definitely the focus in outpatient for an amputee textbook is going to be the gait training side of it for the most part. Let's see. Janet says, hi from Saskatchewan, Canada. We got a lot of connects on board tonight. And says, I'm interested in that book. Can you show it again? Like to get my hands on one. Absolutely, Janet. Happy to help out. So here is the website, Janet. There's the website for the book. And then Janet, for my international folks, it's a little different with shipping. So if you would like to order the book, Janet, then you'll need to email me directly. There's my email address, and I can tell you how to arrange for the shipping because it's just a little bit different for my international folks. If you want to order the video exercise program, that you can do directly on the website without a problem. Sean says, I haven't played pickleball yet and have played billiards and done the Support Brooks Rehab support group at their facility in the university here in Jacksonville. Awesome. Awesome. I love hearing when people get out there and get back into sports. Andrea says, agreed. PT gets more than OT. Cruel world. I agree, Andrea. I do. you OTs are the peanut butter to my jelly. So yes, we need more PT and we need a lot more OT. Jerry asks, oh, that's right. And Damon, that's right. I met Damon there for the first, it's been a good 5 years, man. Jerry says, why are feet different when you first start learning to walk? Do you mean like, why does the prosthetic foot feel different? Or do you mean why are the prosthetic feet different? Like the different kinds that they have you try. So if it's because you're wondering why are the prosthetic feet different, like the actual ones that you receive, each one of them is built a little differently. And I've done several shows on prosthetic feet. It's probably one of my favorite shows to do. Where I break down the different classifications of prosthetic feet. I actually did that recent show with Reggie a few months ago. So if you go back into my YouTube channel, Jerry, under the live section, there's a show I did out of the Lululemon store with Reggie Showers. And I break down all the different classifications of prosthetic feet. Like, what are the different classifications? What are the characteristics in those classifications? And what makes you a candidate for a particular type of foot? Okay. So again, some feet are meant for more stability. Some feet are meant to give you more mobility, right? Some feet, I call them the hybrid feet, they combine the stability and mobility aspects. So depending on what your lifestyle is, what is your balance level, your activity level will determine the kind of foot that you would be a good fit for. Hope that makes sense. Emily says Hershey Rehab Hospital is hosting a rec fest in Manheim, Pennsylvania in August and having a bunch of adaptive sports. Awesome. Because the thing is, they bring in all the cool adaptive toys that you get to use to see like, okay, which is the sport that I really want to get going on. Sean says, I haven't played pickleball yet, but I played billiard. Okay, yeah, I read that part already. Sorry. Woohoo. Okay, so Emily says, I have my physiatrist on Friday, and he said that once I get my prosthesis and right KFO, he wants me to do a week of inpatient gait training. Tell your physiatrist they rock. I love that. Actually, Van Gregory, Lynn DeCola is a prosthetist. And she's a prosthetist and life coach for amputees with the Facebook support group, Lynn's Amputee Chat Room, and it has info on acquiring shoes through insurance. So yes, Linda Cola is a wonderful resource. She and I run into each other many times here in Florida. So she's a great person, but she is a prosthetist, which is great because we need more prosthetists doing just that, what she's doing. So Jerry says that the prosthetic feet feel like they are narrow and they rock a little bit. So keeping in mind, and of course, I think one of my kids ran off with my demo prosthetic foot. I'm going to have to go find that one. But just keeping in mind the prosthetic foot, as amazing as the technology has gotten, it is never going to be able to replicate exactly, like as Reggie would say, replicate divine design, right? Within the foot, it's very much like the hand. There are so many tiny joints within the foot. I mean, we're talking about probably at least 15 joints. And I know I'm underestimating how many joints there are between the ankle and the end of your toes. Okay. So there's so much movement that's going on. And when your foot hits the floor, all those little joints have different angles of movement there. Okay. So when you put on a prosthetic foot, there's not going to be that much degree of there's going to be movement, but not as much as your anatomical foot. So it might get the impression that you're almost like on a rocker just a little bit, especially when you're first learning to use a prosthetic foot. And as far as the narrow, if you take the foot shell off, right? If you take the cosmetic foot shell off your prosthetic foot, you'll see that it's a very narrow, compared to what you're used to seeing on your sound foot. And it's because it's mimicking the skeletal part of your foot. So all the muscles, all the tendons, all the soft tissue that surrounds your foot is no longer there. So your brain is interpreting it as being much more narrow. I hope that makes sense. So Sean says, I had an appointment yesterday with my back and spine specialist, and he said it looks like I am too high on my amputated leg. Got to talk to my prosthetist about my gait. So might explain why my lower back hurts more lately. Absolutely, Sean. So again, Sean, I'm giving you a lot of homework assignments. So I hope you have a lot of, you're going to be binge watching Cosi talks. I know binge watching Netflix is probably more interesting, but this is your other part of your homework assignment, Sean. I did a show probably in April as well. Boy, I did a lot of good shows in April with Ronnie Dixon. He's an above the knee amputee prosthetist, owner of POA in Tennessee. Great clinic. On top of that, Ronnie is a world class rock climber. So very, very active young man himself, right? So we did an entire show on alignment. Okay. And in there, we talk a lot about leg length discrepancy, meaning when people come in saying they're feeling too high, too low on their amputated side, and how you can troubleshoot that. Okay. There's a very specific way to determine if you truly are too high or too low in your prosthesis. And again, I'm not sure if your spine person is going to do it this way, but you have to be in standing, you have to be in a square position, and they are checking different landmarks. And I go through all of that in the show. How many of you guys watched that show? Show of hands. How many of you guys came to my alignment show? It's the only one in the 5 years I've been broadcasting the show. It's the only show I've done on alignment. And I'm like, oh, I need to start doing more of those because that was a really good show. How many of you guys came to my alignment show? Sean says, I like homework. So Scott came to the show, Liz came to the show, Marianne came to the show, Jerry came to the show. So Sean, in that show, I tell you how you can start checking your own alignment from your home, like just the basics of how you can see like, okay, is there something going on with my alignment? Sean says he had me walk and lean up against a wall. Sorry, that's not how you check for leg length and alignment. That's not how you do it. No offense to your specialist there, but no, it's not to say that you don't have something going on, Sean. But here's the thing when it comes to low back pain and leg length discrepancies in amputees, it could be something to do with your pelvis. Okay. In the sense that, come here, Bob. Okay. So I won't go into the whole show because I want you to watch the whole show. It was a pretty long show and a lot of information there. But basically, with your pelvis, right? In Bob's case, it's all one piece because he's got like no flexibility. It's why he can't dance salsa. Sorry, buddy. Right. But in all the rest of us humans, right, our pelvis has very fine little joints, right? And these joints, even though it looks like one piece, they move. Okay. So sometimes they move when they're not supposed to move, and it can give the impression that one leg is longer than the other. Okay. So, as a physical therapist, I check a person head to toe for their alignment before I determine yes, in fact, they do have a leg length discrepancy versus no, they don't have a leg length discrepancy. They either need to add socks, take off socks, or we need to look at the pelvis right there. Yeah. Sean says, I tried to watch that show but fell asleep. Dude, seriously, come on now. Get yourself some coffee and go watch that show again. All right. No, I'm just playing with you. I'm just messing with you. All right, guys, this has been a really great show. You guys have kept me talking and I love it. Thank you, Ben Gregory. He says that alignment show is full of useful information, which you'll get, Sean, if you don't fall asleep on it next time. All right, I'll give you that much. All right, guys. So just reminder next week, set your alarms on your phones, sign up for my text messaging. Let me put that number up again, 855-721-0837. Just have to text Cosi Talks in all caps, one word. Guys, I want to see you signing up for those text messages. By the way, you can also send me text messages through that service as well. Okay, so that way you guys will get the information and the alert when I go live, and I put the links in there, make it nice and easy for you. All right, next week, guys, right? We have the Sydneys, Sydney the woman and Sydney the man coming on the show with Click Medical to talk about how what they went through for their amputation journeys, and both of their stories are just amazing, and how they've become active again using the adjustable socket. So those of you who have questions about adjustable socket technology, you can ask them yourself next Wednesday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Guys, thank you for letting me be a part of your lives this evening.